Of all my years of Tyler Perry, I have never encountered a film that just fascinates me so much. A big reason for that is because of our hero of the story, Melinda Moore, the protagonist of the 2018 Tyler Perry film Acrimony. Melinda is a special case. In fact, she single-handedly takes the Angry Black Woman Trope and makes it want to turn to religion, cause this character is all sorts of questionable. And what's sad is that we're supposed to root for her. Why do I say that? You'll see soon. But for now, let's get to her story. Melinda is in court being sentenced by the judge to go to counseling for all the trouble she's caused. During her therapy session, the first thing she establishes is that she's angry, and it's all her ex-husband's fault. And just how evil is this guy? Melinda decides to narrate her story and how it all started. Her journey actually began in college. It was raining and she was trying to get to class on time when she bumped into her future tormentor, Robert Gayle. Okay, look, I'd be mad too, but you ain't gotta act like that. He later visits her dorm room to return some papers she left behind. And at first she treats him like shit, but then she notices his good looks and becomes smitten. So it turns out Melinda isn't very college material, and struggles with her studies in contrast to Robert, who's a brilliant guy and is studying to be an engineer. He even offers Melinda some help, which does nothing. But that doesn't matter right now because her two sisters arrive at the college to let her know that their mom died. During the wake, Robert visits to comfort and support Melinda. But when he prepares to leave so that the family could have their time, Melinda decides to just leave her mother's wake with Robert, offering to drive him back to his RV. They talk for a bit, and here we learn a little more about Robert himself. He inherited this RV from his uncle, and the driveway he's parked on is his aunt's. His dad's in prison, his mom left him, and he was raised by his grandmother who died. Now he's a lonely broke college student living in an RV striving off of student loans. So then, in her vulnerable state, they have sex, which she solely blames Robert for instead of herself because she didn't have to leave with him. Let's talk about Melinda's family. While I wouldn't call her sisters toxic, I mean they genuinely love her and have her best interests, but they are rather condescending to her as well as nosy and judgmental. In any other story, the sisters would be written as someone Melinda must prove wrong. But every time she tries to make her own decisions in spite of them, they just always end up being right. A good example is when they first meet Robert. They waste no time showing instant disapproval of him. But what about her mother? Well, according to Melinda, they had a very close and loving relationship. However, it's quite obvious her mother never saw true potential in her either, as evident by this line.
This is all just a waste of money. I can't keep doing this to my mother. To be honest with you, I mean, she was surprised I was even going to school. I wasn't as smart as my sisters.
That's probably why her mom left her with $350,000 and her house. Not out of favoritism, but compared to her older, more experienced, and self-aware sisters, she was gonna need it the most. So they warn Melinda not to mention her mother's inheritance to Robert, to which she does anyway because she's that damn stupid. While on their latest date, Robert talks about his biggest goal in life: to invent a rechargeable battery and to one day partner up with this company called Prescott Industries that buys new technology. So getting into the meat of things, what could this soft-spoken, caring, and charming guy possibly do to ruin this woman's life? Well, that's just it. Robert is not your typical abuser. He's a very nuanced case of a con artist, and the way he's portrayed as one almost makes it look unintentional on his part. So because Super Genius told him about her inheritance, he decides to manipulate her into buying him an expensive car. And soon after, he starts distancing himself from Melinda, and she suspects him of cheating when she calls him up. So she drives to his RV at night to confirm, and is sadly proven right. At first, she tries making the right choice for once and attempts to drive off. But then... and she ended up being hospitalized, having to get a full hysterectomy because the impact of ramming against the RV was so severe that she destroyed her uterus in the process. Which sucks for her because earlier she was fawning over her own desires to start a family with Robert, to become a mother. So the one thing that she really wanted out of life, arguably the only thing she was truly ambitious about, was forever taken away from her. And it is through her sisters that we learn anger, to this level, has always been a huge part of Melinda. It doesn't entirely have everything to do with Robert. Nobody takes this as seriously as they really should, because Melinda is not just some hothead. She is a literal danger to herself and others.
It's like nothing mattered but getting even. I was told I'd get it from my daddy, but his was quiet. Mine, I would burn a whole house down with me in it to get to the motherfucker that done me wrong.
So Robert comes in, and instead of turning him away like someone with a brain would've, she lets him in, he cries, says sorry, and that wins her back over. Then, not too long after, she spends even more money on him. That's when he inexplicably loses his scholarship. And after all the sacrifices she's made for this cheating loser, he finally decides to pop the question. With a toy ring. And for no good reason, she says,
Yes! Yes! Yes!
The sisters rightfully don't attend the wedding. The only person who strongly supports Melinda's relationship with Robert is her only friend, Sarah, who no one cares about. So eventually, Robert graduates from college, and this is a very happy day for Melinda because in between the time of being newlyweds, all her inheritance slowly started to squander away thanks to Robert needing resources for his battery. And speaking of his battery, he becomes so hyper-focused on perfecting it that he starts neglecting his wife. Even when he's not working on his battery, he's still neglecting his wife. And also because he was still a college student at the time, so he couldn't even be bothered with helping Melinda financially, resulting in her working 2 jobs. But now that he's out of school, 3 really high-paying companies immediately want to hire him. So that means she can finally relax with all that financial support coming in every year. So how does he screw it all up?
When I was 15, I was in a gang and we robbed a grocery store. I got charged as an adult and I spent 2 years in jail. I thought I can get expunged off my record since I was only 15, but it's still there. No one will hire a felon.
And just to add insult to injury, he persuades Melinda to mortgage her mother's home for more money to advance his battery. Now, all they have left is hope that this invention will soon take off once it's done. So now the big question comes. Why does Melinda love Robert? And yes, I'm asking this now because apart from the obvious reasons so far, it's not like Robert has really brought anything good to their marriage ever since. The only good thing he does bring is being a good lover, but that's not even a whole lot. And Melinda this whole time has said absolutely nothing about it. I find it quite impressive that for someone who gets dangerously angry, she's been surprisingly passive and patient the whole relationship. And so 2 whole decades of their marriage have now passed, and things have been ultimately boring, forgettable, and unaffectionate. And all the while, Melinda has continued being the breadwinner, running herself to the ground, becoming tired and rougher with age. Meanwhile, Robert has long since finished his battery and spent the rest of the marriage harassing this one company. because apparently in this universe, alternatives don't exist. So Prescott finally gets tired of being harassed and flat out bans Robert.
Aww.
And Melinda comes in and says what she should have said ages ago.
Have you ever asked me what I want? I just want you to get a job. Help me out consistently, that's all. Now let me know this battery is not going to work. We can put it away, okay?
Her sisters also get involved once they learn the house is now getting foreclosed, and offer Robert a job in their catering business to help Melinda with the bills. But one day, he ends up bailing on a very important delivery that would have aided their money problems because he finally scores a meeting with Prescott himself. All from the help of Diana. I'll get to her later. At some point, Diana accidentally leaves her wallet in Robert's truck when they went out for coffee, keeping things strictly business between them. The sisters find it and tell Melinda he's cheating on her with that same woman. She immediately leaves her job to confront Robert and doesn't buy for 1 second that he's attending a meeting with Prescott. The first time in 20 years she's held him accountable for something, and it's all over a misunderstanding. But Melinda has bigger problems because thanks to Robert, they have no money to save her mother's house. And for the cherry on top, Robert turns down the offer of $800,000 given to him by Prescott. So everything was pointless. He goes back home empty-handed and tries to explain this to his future ex-wife. And at long last, Melinda finally puts her foot down and divorces him. But during the process of the divorce, Melinda moves in with one of her sisters and tries to move on by going out with this Devin guy that she used to date long before meeting Robert. While with him though, she finds herself a bit conflicted over her feelings of Robert. Although she resents him for everything, rightfully so.
I had wasted too many years with Robert. Too many years feeling lonely whenever he was around. And I thought about Robert from time to time. Sometimes with sympathy, but mostly with anger.
She admits to still having feelings for him. Not to mention,
Devin was just okay in bed, but he wasn't Robert. Robert mastered my body. He knew my curves. He knew how I liked it slightly to the left. Robert would at least try to hold me. And the thought of him being with another woman still made me jealous.
Spends her whole narration trashing Robert, but apparently not above talking up how great he is in bed. Make up your damn mind, is he the devil or not? So anyway, some time passes and Robert finally makes it big time when his battery hits. And after everything, he still keeps his promise to Melinda by going to her job and giving her $10 million, plus buying her mother's house back. So in the heap of all his shortcomings, at least he's redeemable, I guess. There's actually a lot about Robert that's left ambiguous. We're not in his perspective, so we have no idea what his mindset is really like. So maybe he was well-intentioned all along, or not. This just leaves the door open for a lot of theories about Robert's own psyche. But this video isn't about Robert. It's about Melinda and how she can't make a competent choice to save her life. Speaking of which, it's almost about that time, so let's move this along. Melinda shows her sisters the check and gives everyone, including Devin, a very vicious and undeserved screw you before leaving to be with Robert again. She visits his penthouse pretending like they never divorced, but...
Sorry I'm late, babe.
Baby, this is Melinda, my ex-wife.
Hi, I'm Diana, Robert's fiance.
See, Diana isn't just some one-off fling from 20 years ago. She grew up to become the freaking CEO of Prescott. She is also the antithesis of Melinda herself. Cool-headed, self-assured, ambitious, and the type of woman Robert actually needed to match his own expertise. That said, Robert's dream wouldn't have happened at all if not for her stepping in. So in the end, it is Diana that gets to live out Robert's promises, and, let's be honest, Melinda should feel inferior. If only she was half the woman Diana is, she'd be much better off a long time ago. But to be fair to Melinda, let's look at her perspective. Here I was, sacrificing so much for a sorry man that wouldn't have even gotten this far without me and my resources. I didn't have to do any of this. I should have dropped you the moment you betrayed me the first time. But I stayed willingly because I believed in you. And after wasting 20 years of what should have been the best of my life, slowly killing myself to support you all the while, all I had left was clinging on to a promise that was never guaranteed to happen. And now you mean to tell me that all of your promises to me will instead go to not just any random woman, but the same one you cheated on me with, resulting in my inability to conceive. I won't deny, I get where she's coming from. I'd be salty too if I was in her position. But she refuses to see that it doesn't have to be this way. It's not too late to reinvent yourself in your 40s. You're much better off now. Robert's moved on with his newfound wealth, so should you. And while you're at it, find a better man. But all that built up anger and disappointment she's concealed for years has now reached dangerous heights, and all she can think about is spiting Robert however way she can. She stalks and harasses the new couple online, tries in vain to sue Robert for more of his money, and even goes far as to visit the bridal shop to pour acid on Diana's chosen wedding dress, which is the thing that brought her back to court and sentenced to counseling in the first place.
It's okay, Your Honor. I couldn't fit the dress anymore anyway. This little one's growing pretty fast.
She gets to have Melinda's custom-made wedding ring, a yacht named after her, a high-rising penthouse with a beautiful view, and now she gets the one thing that Melinda can never, ever have. Ouch. So after hearing her story, the therapist asks,
have you ever considered that maybe there's another way to look at this? Maybe he did mean what he said. Maybe the deceit isn't what you think. Would you allow room for that possibility? Would you feel better if he was really being honest and he really meant well?
And Melinda's response,
I am not wrong.
You're just like everybody else. See?
I get dogged, and it's my fault.
So although she's self-aware of her own vices, there's still no accountability to be had on her part. Everything is Robert's fault, and she's right to be angry. This is a pattern with Melinda. Not only is she a literal danger to herself and others, but she knows she is and doesn't care. In her mind, it's like, I was wronged first, so my anger is justified. But everyone around me keeps saying that I'm the problem, and she refuses to better herself over it. This becomes apparent when the therapist diagnoses her with borderline personality disorder, and she gets offended and leaves. Back at home, while the couple celebrates their wedding day, Melinda's sisters get so worried over her declining mental health that at first they warn the couple to get security for their wedding, which goes about as well as expected. And now they try to keep her from leaving the house. So instead, she sneaks out of her bedroom window like a rebellious teenager. Which brings us to her downfall. So later that night, the newlyweds are celebrating their honeymoon on the yacht when Melinda somehow gets on the yacht and holds Robert at gunpoint while wearing Diana's new wedding dress. She begins threatening everyone on the boat while trying to force Robert to be with her again and give her the life as originally promised. All while this is happening, Diana leaves to go get help. And during their struggle, Robert tries to knock Melinda off the boat at first, but she gets back on and just straight up tries to kill him with an axe. This all leads to her leg getting caught in the chains holding the anchor up, which gets released into the water and takes her down with it. And she drowns. She mentioned earlier that she has this weird relationship with water. Strange things happen when she's wet. I guess it's meant to symbolize how she's drowning in her own anger. Or if the drowning symbolism is anything like BoJack Horseman.
Because there are some people you can't save. Because those people will thrash and struggle and try to take you down with them.
But that, sadly, is the non-conclusion of Melinda Moore's journey. To end this on a serious note, I don't feel sorry for Melinda. But at the same time, there's definitely this sad vibe with her. And I believe she would have destroyed herself with or without Robert's help. It may be cynical, but Melinda has shown us from the beginning that she was a lost cause. Her being young at the time I can maybe let slide, but in her later age, what excuse is there? You can't really say that she lost herself in this relationship because the truth is, she never had a self. And that was her biggest problem apart from her mental illness, having no sense of self. Throughout the whole story, she never shows real interest in anything outside of Robert, having kids, and all the promises. No hobbies, no aspirations, no goals of her own, no interest in being anything. Not even anything to call her own. Everything she had was through other people. I get it, it's hard to make your own life when you have money problems, believe me, I know. But it's implied that she was like this before Robert. She just doesn't have much of a personality. Can you point out any other trait she has besides being angry and stupid? I saw this video from a YouTuber who did an analysis on all of the main characters, and she goes way more in depth with each one, including Melinda, so I recommend watching it. But there have been many debates on who was right and wrong in this situation. But if I had to say who I thought was more wrong, it'd be Melinda, for all the above reasons I've mentioned. Because fact is, things never had to come to this if only Melinda was her own person. It wouldn't have cost her so much more than just money.